Okay, what if I told you there's a single plant that could tackle malnutrition, clean up water, and help lift people out of poverty? It, it sounds a little too good to be true, right? Like a miracle? And for a lot of people, that's exactly what they call it. But today, we're going to look past the stories and dig into the actual proof.
And that quote you see right there, that's a kind of bold claim you hear from people on the ground in Madagascar. They're convinced that this simple green powder from a local tree could be the key to solving one of their country's biggest, most heartbreaking problems.
Look, that is a huge claim. And a claim that big, it needs some serious backup. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to follow the evidence all the way from the villages where this crisis is happening to the hard science of a laboratory to find out, is this tree really the miracle everyone says it is?
All right, Section 1, Africa's malnutrition crisis and the human and economic cost. Before we can really appreciate a potential solution, we first have to understand just how massive the problem is. And for that, our story kicks off in Madagascar, an island nation where this crisis isn't just a headline, it's a daily reality.
51%. Just let that sink in for a second. That is not just a number on a chart. It's a shocking reality. More than half the entire population of Madagascar doesn't have enough to eat. We're talking about a massive humanitarian crisis here, and it's fueled by this perfect storm of climate change, terrible cyclones, and just grinding poverty.
And this leads to something called the poverty trap. And it is just a cruel, cruel cycle. See, it's not always about a total lack of food. It's about a lack of choice. You have local farmers. They're growing healthy, nutritious food like vegetables, or maybe raising chickens. But they can't afford to eat it themselves. They have to sell that good stuff to make money, and then use that cash to buy cheaper food, like rice, just to fill their family's stomachs. So you get calories, but not the nutrients you actually need to be healthy and to thrive.
And the result of that cycle? It's absolutely devastating. 1 out of every 5 kids in Madagascar is stunted. And stunting, it's a kind of malnutrition that's so bad it permanently damages a child's growth. Not just their body, but their brain development too. For life. It is, quite literally, a cycle of poverty being passed down from one generation to the next.
Okay, so with that difficult reality in mind, let's turn to Section 2, the miracle tree solution. Because right in the middle of this crisis, there's a potential solution that's literally taking root. It's a pretty humble-looking tree, actually, and it has a bunch of different names, but for a lot of people, it's just the miracle tree.
So what is this tree? Well, its scientific name is Moringa oleifera, and what's amazing about it is how tough it is. It's a really resilient plant that absolutely loves dry, semi-arid climates, which of course is exactly the kind of environment you find in so many parts of Africa. But the real magic, that's all in the leaves.
And when you look at what's inside those leaves, it's just staggering. Moringa leaves are absolutely packed with protein. We're talking all the essential amino acids. They're loaded with vitamins A, B, C, and K, tons of minerals, even omega-3s. It is one of the most nutrient-dense plants ever discovered. So on paper, this thing looks like the perfect weapon to fight malnutrition.
But, on paper is one thing. Proof is something else entirely. So the big question is, can this superfood actually make a real, measurable difference in a kid's health? To answer that, we need to look at the science. And that brings us to Section 3, the science of porridge. We're going to dive into a serious, randomized, controlled trial that took place in Nairobi, Kenya.
The way they set this up was actually pretty simple and really smart. Researchers took about 113 kids and split them into 2 groups. The first group, the control group, they just got a regular bowl of finger millet porridge every day. The second group got the exact same porridge, but with one tiny crucial change. Theirs was mixed with a little bit of moringa leaf powder.
Okay, so this whole study ran for 3 months. At the very beginning, the researchers measured everybody's health to get a baseline. Then, for the next 3 months, the kids got their specific porridge every day. And at the end, they measured everyone's health again. They were looking for the answer to one simple question. Did that little bit of moringa powder actually make a real, statistically significant difference? And the results? They were absolutely dramatic. The first huge finding was all about vitamin A. The group eating the regular porridge, no real change. But the kids in the Moringa group, their serum retinol levels, that's the main way you measure vitamin A, they just shot through the roof. They went from being deficient to having sufficient levels in just 3 months. Incredible. And it wasn't just vitamin A. The impact on their overall health was just as striking. Get this, at the end of the study,
more than a third of the kids in the control group were still considered undernourished. And the Moringa group? That number dropped all the way down to just 10.5%. I mean, the difference is just undeniable.
So here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway. The science completely backs up the story. We're not just talking anecdotes anymore. In a controlled scientific study, adding a little bit of moringa powder to a child's food had a huge, measurable positive effect on their health. It works.
All right, Section 4, from trial to village. The science is solid, we've established that, but how do you take something that works in a controlled experiment and make it work in the real world, in the messy, complicated, day-to-day reality of a village in Madagascar?
Well, the approach they're taking is really smart because it's all based in the community. Step 1, they grow moringa seedlings at a local school. Step 2, they take those seedlings and distribute them to families out in remote villages. And this is key. They also provide education on how to take care of the trees and how to use them. And then step 4 is just to follow up to see if the trees are actually growing.
But of course, the real world is never that easy, right? The team goes out for a follow-up visit to one village, and what they find is, well, it's pretty discouraging. The little seedlings they handed out just aren't thriving. Some got too much water, some didn't get enough. And that initial spark of hope starts to feel like it's fading.
And then, just as they're about to give up, a villager points down the hill. And there it is, a huge, fully grown, healthy moringa tree that had been planted years ago. It was the proof they needed. It was living proof that this tree can grow here, it can thrive here, and that was the sign of hope they needed to keep pushing forward.
Okay, so let's move into our final section. Section 5, what's next for moringa? We've seen the hard scientific proof, and we've seen that glimmer of real-world hope. So what's the bigger picture here? What could the future look like for moringa, not just in Madagascar, but all across Africa?
Well, the potential is just immense, because it turns out this tree is way more than just nutritious leaves. The seeds, they have proteins that can actually be used to purify water. Because it grows so fast and resists drought, it's an amazing tool for reforestation and fighting climate change. Oh, and the stuff left over after pressing the seeds for oil? It makes great food for livestock? It's like this all-in-one, multi-purpose solution.
But let's be realistic. There are still some major hurdles to overcome. For one, there just isn't enough widespread information or research out there yet. Farmers also need a way to sell it, better access to markets to make it worth their while to grow. And then there's this perception problem. In some places, it's seen as a famine food, something you only eat when you're desperate.
And this really brings us to the biggest idea of all. Moringa is what scientists call a neglected and underutilized species. And it's not alone. There are thousands of plants like it all over the world. These are local plants that big mainstream agriculture has basically ignored, but they hold all this incredible potential to solve local problems with local solutions.
And that leaves us with one final, really important question to think about. The story of moringa, it's not really just about one tree. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the solutions to our biggest, most complex challenges, well, they might not need to be invented in some high-tech lab. Sometimes they're already out there, growing right in our own backyards, just waiting for us to pay attention.